Every farmer claims they farm in tougher conditions than anybody else that's in the game of farming. My guest, XtremeAg member Todd Kimbrell, might actually have a claim that you can believe. We're talking to a farmer who almost lost a crop during the wettest year on record, and it wasn't due to the wet, it was due to drought. Yeah, that's what we're talking about. Todd Kimbrell, XtremeAg member, in this episode of XtremeAg's Cutting the Curve.
It's XtremeAg's Cutting the Curve podcast, cutting your learning curve and improving your farming operation every week. This episode of the Cutting the Curve podcast is powered by Nachurs Bio-K technology, delivering enhanced nutrient cycling, greater plant health, and elevated stress mitigation, leading to increased crop yields. Visit nachurs.com. And now, let's get ready to learn with your host, Damian Mason.
Hey there, welcome to another fantastic episode of XtremeAg's Cutting the Curve. I got a good one for you today. He's XtremeAg member Todd Kimbrell. He actually doesn't know that many of the XtremeAg guys. He met Matt Miles at Row Crop Exchange, and he said, you know what, this is kind of cool. He's a cotton producer, wheat, corn. He's in Hillsboro, Texas, a little bit south of Dallas, and he said, I farm in really tough conditions. Matt Miles claims he farms in Little Vietnam. I farm in Little Vietnam. I'm telling you, it's even worse than that. I've got terrible conditions down here. So anyway, we're going to get into that. Todd Kimbrell, welcome to the program.
Hello, how's it going?
So your Twitter bio says, or X as it is now, says, I farm where we lost a crop to drought on one of the wettest years ever. Is this true?
That's true. I think that was in 2018. We had battled to get the crop planted, not terribly, but we got everything planted off going pretty good. And then sometime there in May, it just turned hot and dry. And we literally, our corn burned up. It was like a 40 bushel crop. And then soon after harvest, it started raining and didn't stop. But I don't know. I'd have to look at the number. I think it was 60 or 70 inches of rain that year. But our corn literally burned up in the midst of all that. So
yeah, so it's the old thing, wrong time, wrong time, precipitation, etc. Your farming operation, I said Hillsboro, Texas. That's what I think I saw on Facebook. Is that the actual right town where your farm is located?
yeah, well, our address is Itasca, but we're between Hillsboro, Itasca. So yeah, Hillsboro would be the biggest town close to us.
Roughly 60, 80 miles south of the Dallas-Fort Worth
70.
Metroplex?
Yep, about 70.
70 miles south of the Dallas-Fort Worth Metroplex. Okay, there's a lot of people listen to this. We got listeners from all over. We are happy to have you, a Texan, on here. The person that's in North Dakota, the person that's in Ohio, whatever. Why is it so tough with your conditions?
Well, so I got to where I tell people this lately. We farm where we plant corn in the end of February. And it usually shocks people in the Midwest and big corn areas, but we plant in the winter and harvest in the spring, technically. And it just kind of accidentally works per season, but it's extreme. We're planting early to try to beat the heat in the summertime. So I don't know, somewhere about mid-May, it can really turn off hot and dry and things can go south in a hurry. So we're really trying to pollinate before the end of May. So that's why we plant so early. And, it's already warming up down here. I mean, our soil is right and it's ready. So,
yeah, so that might be the earliest. Mr. Miles over in McGee, Arkansas, the Delta region, a lot of stuff goes in the ground end of Feb, but more early March, I think, is really his window, right?
Yeah. And so used to, I would say the first week of March would be our sweet spot for corn. But now it's the last week of February, or maybe even a touch earlier, but somewhere right in there is our sweet spot.
Okay, real quickly, run through roughly. You're pretty big. You're a pretty big operator. You got plenty of acres. It's all dry land, so
That's correct.
I'm assuming you can cover more acres per man hour because you're not taking care of irrigation. You talk to the guys, particularly our southern friends, Chad Henderson, Matt Miles, and Kevin Matthews. They have a lot of extra man hours committed to keeping the irrigation working, and you don't have that.
That's correct. We're all dry land. I've only maybe touched one pivot or poly pipe in my whole life, so I don't know anything about it. But yeah, probably less labor. But the flip side of that is we have to have more equipment. Our patterns tend to flip from one extreme to the other, and it seems like we do everything now in these little short bursts of windows. Like I geared up, our farm's geared up now to plant our corn crop in 5 days. And I think that's what it needs to be in our area now, because our window is so tight that we never know. If we get a 2-inch rain in February, we're out for 2 weeks minimum. So
because you're still cool then, and 2 inches
Right.
of rain will keep. It's kind of like even in Indiana, obviously where I'm from. The drying factor. You can get 2 inches of rain in July and be out there a day and a half later pretty easily. But obviously in February it hangs around. So that's just a temperature and soil temperature and evaporation
Right.
issue, length of day.
Yep, and then yeah, exactly. The days are very short, and then our soil is extremely sticky here. Most people, when they think of Texas, they think of West Texas and the Panhandle and the flat, dry with big pivots and all that. But we're the exact opposite. We're rolling. We get about 37 inches of rain a year on average. Whatever average is anymore, I don't even know anymore.
Right.
But yeah, it's all spurts, and we're really high CEC soils, really high clay soils, so we're very, very sticky.
Yeah, which most people would think it's dry, it's sandy, it's flat, and it's a grain sorghum patch, and that's not where you are. Well,
Right.
I think it's also worth mentioning that, remember, like Texas is what, 4.5 Iowas or something like that. I
Yeah.
mean, it's a huge state.
Big state, very big state. I mean, you can go down to the southern tip where they were growing sugarcane. They're not anymore because of the water situation. But sugarcane and citrus in the south,
Yep.
and then the Panhandle to the north. I mean, it's totally different worlds within the state.
Right. So your farming operation is corn, cotton, wheat. What else?
That's the main crop. Sometimes we'll raise soybeans, but we're really too hot for beans when they're trying to flower and do their thing and fill pods. The heat's just brutal here. We haven't been able to make them work very well. Consistently, I should say.
And you're going to do 50. You told me in our prep call you're going to do 1,500 acres of sesame as a specialty crop contract. We're going to cover that in a different episode because we're going to talk about using specialty crops to diversify up your operation. We'll cover that in a different thing. So tell us the mix here. Corn goes in the ground. Your first thing you plant. You're doing that in February,
Right? And but
you're harvesting it. You're harvesting it in June.
No, probably. Well, they'll chop silage for silage in June, but the earliest would be early July. But usually mid to late July is when we start typically. But it all depends. If we get good rain and a good season, it's usually later in July, early August. But so that timeline all shifts with the weather, and it's impossible to guess.
Right. And then, by the way, that's the other thing. People are saying silage. When people think of Texas, they think, okay, there's a bunch of cattle out on the range. It's Cowboy Bob is out here, but there's a bunch of dairy in Texas. So, do you sell off some of your corn for silage to dairies?
Very rarely. There's a lot of it done in my area. I don't chop a lot, but there is a lot done in my area. So if you go west of us 100 miles, there's a lot of dairy still in that Stephenville area. And then if you go north of that, there's still some feed yards. Most people don't even know we have some feed yards in range. And then if you go 100 miles east, there's chicken houses. There's tons of chickens. So our corn really goes almost all directions, and there's a big demand for corn in our area.
Yeah, a lot of people wouldn't think that. They think, okay, corn feed yards, Nebraska, Kansas, whatever, and they wouldn't think that. And then obviously a lot of people don't realize the amount of dairy. I knew about the dairy over in that Stevensville. I did not know about chickens. Broilers, layers.
Broilers mostly. I think there's a little bit of layers, but mostly broilers.
Which consumes a lot of corn.
Yep. So like your Tysons, your Pilgrims, all those big guys are out in East Texas, and they consume a ton of corn.
All right. So people like me from an I-state think that people like you should not be growing corn. You should just be down there having, I don't know, rice or something, cotton maybe, and let the I-states take care of the corn. It helps my farm ground cash rent prices. But anyway, we've already decided that. What else? So your mix, then how much of your mix is wheat?
We're a small percent, but this year we decided to plant a few more acres. I had some ground that really needed rotating that we've had in corn for a lot of years. And so we decided to put wheat, and we were brainstorming, how can we make a little more out of this wheat? The wheat board's terrible, as everybody knows. Like, what can we do to squeeze a little more out? Soybeans, double crop, just don't tend to work. We don't have water. It gets too hot. What's a dry, drought-tolerant, heat-tolerant crop we could try? And I keep circling back to sesame, so we're going to give it a try. We don't really know, but we're going to give it a try. At least the dove hunting will be good.
Well, that's good. By the way, it's my favorite thing to do, shoot doves. You don't have to wake up early. It's not cold and it's fast action. So I'm going to put you on my list, a trip to Hillsborough to shoot doves.
That'll
What
work.
about double cropping? Like Johnny Varell makes double cropping work magically. Chad Henderson makes double cropping. Our friend Matt, they call them wheat beans, which means double crop beans following
Right.
wheat they put in the stubble. Doesn't work where you are. And you even have a longer season, arguably, but you don't have enough moisture.
Usually it's almost not even moisture. It's the heat. So in that, when we're harvesting corn, it's always 100 degrees. It's never at less than 100 degrees. And I've been all over the country, and they say, "Oh, it gets 100 degrees here." Yeah, but it's 100 at 10 a.m. here.
Yeah, right.
And so in that year that we burned up on one of the wettest years ever, we had 112, 113 actual temp during corn harvest, that's extreme. We don't normally get that hot, but we did that year.
Yeah, and there's years where I'm from where we're harvesting corn and we have to wait till the frost gets off so that the corn runs through there. And it's down to 26 at night and 40 maybe for the high.
So funny story about that. When I grew up, when I was a kid, I could not figure out why they put a heater in a combine because I just could not fathom it. Didn't make sense. But after I've kind of figured out now why, but yeah, I could never figure out why they put a heater in a combine.
Yeah, well, there's combines get used a lot in places like Minnesota or
Right.
or where I am, and it's not during ideal temperatures. So on the mix, rice, no, rice is a Texas product, but not in your part of the world.
That's right. That'd be southeast, like down towards the Houston area, Beaumont,
Okay.
and you got to have a lot of water, which we don't have here. So
And then cotton? Well, cotton's not profitable right now, is my understanding. But cotton generally, was cotton half your acres usually?
no, cotton's. So when I grew up, it was all cotton and grain sorghum, and then it's migrated more towards corn. And then there's still guys that have some cotton, but very little cotton compared to historic levels. Cotton's probably about maybe a quarter of our acres.
Okay. And you don't own ownership in a gin?
No, I do not.
And then why don't you do grain sorghum when is it because you're still moist enough you don't need to go with a dry weather crop like sorghum?
No, actually, grain sorghum works really good here, but corn, there was some time in the early 2000s, corn hybrids got better and everybody switched to corn. Corn crop insurance is much better.
Yep.
Honestly, we do a better job raising corn. So better job planting, raising, weed control, better harvest, the whole thing. So everybody's just switched to corn. There's very little sorghum left in this area.
So we talked about the competition among farmers. They love to talk about how tough their conditions are. I want to know, is it really that tough? I mean, seriously, you're sitting there in a climate-controlled piece of equipment. You've got the best weather forecasting that we've ever had, which still is not 100%. We get that. The technology available to us. Are you just being a normal bitching farmer, or are you really actually dealing with that tough of conditions?
Man, I don't know. It's tough. So when things go good here, it's the best place in the world to be to farm. But when they don't, like, okay, last year's a good example. We had corn at about V5, fought the mud getting it in, which is fairly normal. Got it going. Everything looked good. It started raining. Had from 37 to 42 inches prior to harvest. So we completely drowned out. And there was nothing. I mean, we just sit here and watch it rain and rain and rain. And I don't know. That's pretty disheartening to sit here and watch. So
you're saying that your only complaint really is that unpredictable precipitation, and sometimes it comes in torrents. That's it.
precipitation and temp, but those typically go hand in hand here. If we get dry, you just better. It's going to get crazy hot. Matter of fact, it's never not done that. I've never seen it dry and cool in the summertime here.
I want to hear more about you, and then we're going to talk about the adjustments and the adaptations that you make to pull it off against the conditions, because everybody is always making adjustments no matter where they farm, soil conditions, products they have to use, equipment, things. Those are what we're going to get into. I want to remind you, dear listener, about our friends at Superior Grain. As your farm operation grows, so do the challenges. Superior Grain Equipment's grain storage systems are built to make your job easier and help your grain reach its full potential. What kind of conditions your grain in, do you know? Are you losing condition in your grain? Is it costing you money? Maybe sometimes you think to yourself, I can't afford to make upgrades. I can't do stuff to my grain setup and these commodity prices. Well, maybe you're actually not counting the cost of degrading quality of your crop. There's a lot of things to consider. From gentle mix flow dryers to durable storage, get the flexibility to market your grain on your time. You can visit with the experts from Superior Grain Equipment at this year's Farm Progress Show. It's in August in Decatur, Illinois, or you can visit them online anytime, superiorbins.com, superiorbins.com. You're 41 years old, going to be 42. Bringing down the average age of our XtremeAg guys. We're happy to have you. Tell me about your first year. You got out of high school. Take me from there.
Got out of high school, went to trade school, didn't know if I'd be able to farm. It's very competitive here in our area. Didn't know if I was going to be able to farm. Got the opportunity my last year there. So
by the way, this is about the year 2000, 2002.
So this would have been 2003, late 2003.
When you say competitive, I look at things, that's about when ag started getting good again, coming out of the bad 80s and even the 90s were a challenge. I think there was probably, you're coming into it, my perspective, about the mid-2000s, ag got cool again because ag got profitable again. So the competition, your timing, 10 years earlier, I think you'd had an easier time getting in.
Yeah, so the only way I got in was there was this farm that was in CRP, and then the contract expired, and they were looking for a new tenant, and I took this thing. It had been in CRP for like 20-something years. You're
one of those guys. You're the reason that now Texas is blowing away and there's no pheasants because you took ground out of conservation.
I don't know. This was more of a wild hog habitat than anything. I don't think it was doing much good, but we took this thing and we still farm it today, and that's exactly how we got started.
So with nothing?
Actually, yes, with nothing.
Now, you're from a farming background, so did you use the old man's equipment and on a rental basis, or how did it start?
So, no, I went to the USDA and got a beginning farmer loan and started with nothing. I had a pickup I was driving, and that was really it. Now, my dad and I did farm together, so he used some of my stuff, and I did use some of his stuff, but I had to go get my own tractor and everything.
Got it. So that's a good story. For that first farm you picked up, and then where'd you work from? What did it have facilities on it?
No, so I guess I did use my dad and grandpa's stuff for a facility, but I was still living at home. I was just really skating by. I didn't have anything. It was pretty tough at first. And the first year out of the box, we made a really good crop. It was a good year, and just barely squeaked by. So we got really lucky.
And you were like a teenager still.
Yeah, I was 20. Yeah.
20. All right. So then from there, to here, give me the highlights. How do you farm in excess of 10,000 acres now from that story in the year 2003?
I would just say a lot of luck and just trying to do a good job. But things got pretty tough in the mid-2000s. We were pretty dry. And then like 2008, when the commodities got a little better, we had some good wheat and things kind of started to roll a little better and just kind of slowly increased our way to where we are, which now we're worried about going back down in acres because of urban sprawl. I mean, we're so close to the Metroplex. The concrete is encroaching on us,
yeah.
I mean, at a rapid pace.
So it's competitive to get acres still around where you are?
Very, very
Did your acres, did you go door banging, or did it one of those deals where people started handing off stuff because they were exiting the business? How did you acquire acreage?
Yep, just a little bit of that. I'm not a door banger. I don't participate in those, but it just kind of all came to us. Some people getting out, some people downsizing, whether they wanted to or not. We just kind of slowly grew our way.
Is your acreage mostly cash rented? Is it done on shares? What's the
both? Probably about now. Used to be more shares, but probably about half and half now.
Half cash rent, half shares.
Yeah, a lot of old school share rents here still.
How much your ground it professionally managed, where there's like a land manager and the ownership is off in Dallas?
A little bit of that, not a lot yet, but there is a little bit of that.
And owned acres. You're a young guy. I assume you start buying. You start buying as soon as you could.
As soon as I could, which was pretty late. That's one thing I wish I could have done was buy more when we started. But honestly, there's no way. There's no way we could have with the position we were in. I mean, it would have been impossible.
Right. Now you have a facility. Now you have a grain set up and a barns and all that, though.
Mm-hmm. Yes, sir.
What about the adjustments and the adaptations? When you look at stuff you've got to do that the average person, maybe where I'm from, or maybe in the Dakotas or wherever, what adjustments and adaptations do you make that you think are maybe not unique, because unique means there's no comparison, but more specific to people in your area?
I honestly think it's gone to equipment. Like, people are usually blown away by the amount of equipment we have per acre.
Yeah.
And it's because of everything has gone to, I mean, we just do everything in these little tight windows. And I mean, maybe not corn harvest, but we try to do that in a tight window because it's drying so fast and we're losing so much moisture in the grain. And we're trying to beat that moisture curve of it getting too dry before we're done harvesting.
So really the best adjustment and adaptation is to just be, what some would argue, over-equipped. I'd be one of those guys, because I would be looking at the financials and I'd say, you got too much money on equipment. You got too much money on equipment. And you'd say, I've got windows here that if I don't get that window hit, I'm sunk. I would say you got over-equipped and there's too much of your financials going to that. And you would tell me it's because of timing, period.
That's right. If you miss a window, especially with corn, if you miss that window, the cards are stacked against you, because the heat's going to come. It's just a matter of when. And if you're trying to pollinate, and especially, towards the later part, grain fill during that extreme heat, man, it's the odds are against you. And so if you miss 2 days of planting because you didn't have enough planter power, I've seen it too many times where that extra planter that you have pays for itself easily.
Mm-hmm. And then you got to have some hired help to cover 11,000 acres. What's it look like on that management for that adjustment? Because again, you talk about windows. You need the manpower to go to the field when you got to go to the field.
Yeah, that's tough. I mean, we don't have a ton of employees here. We're pretty lean on that. I have a really good group of guys, but man, it's tough with the city being so close. It's gotten where it's hard to find people, to work, to do this kind of work. It's the hours. We'll go extreme hours. Like when we're trying to plant, we'll plant, there's no telling what we'll do, just depending on the weather. And then it might rain for a week, and then we're looking for stuff to do. So there's real big swings. It makes it tough to manage, honestly.
Yeah, so you got like 4 or 5 guys?
Yep.
What do you do with them when you got, I mean, do you run a trucking business on the side like a lot of farmers do, or something like that?
No, too much liability. The population's so dense here that I don't like having my trucks on the road any more than I have to. Mm-hmm. Traffic has gotten so bad here.
Yeah. So speaking of that, Johnny Varell farms in the shadow of development, because that whole Western Tennessee is going crazy. Chad Henderson is in the shadow of development in North Alabama, and then Kevin Matthews is in North Carolina, where he puts a third of the hours on some of his equipment is asphalt time, which changes the calculus on punching out the return on investment on a piece of equipment. Is not making you any money driving down the road. Are you in a situation where you have to be on the road a lot because of suburban development? In other words, how far is it to cover 11,000 acres from one end to the other? How far are you on the how far flung are you?
About 75 miles. We do a lot of traveling, and we've got to where we put the 31 mile an hour option on these tractors now, so we can get there quicker. And that makes a huge difference.
Yeah. And then you load stuff, you don't put stuff on flatbeds to get, I mean,
we can, and we have, but the liability issues is just almost not worth it. I mean, we do sometimes, but most of the time we just road it, because there's a lot less liability of that thing being on the road versus on a trailer.
Todd Kimbrell, Hillsboro, Texas, in case you forgot who I'm talking to. And you've said the word liability about 4 times. So is another adjustment you have to make is just making sure that your ass isn't hanging out there. I mean, seriously, because you've got some tougher conditions with the population.
Yeah, definitely. That when I was growing up, you didn't see people down. You pull up to the stop sign down here at the highway and usually just take off. You might see one car. Now you got to sit there and wait for cars to go by to get out on the road. So yeah, that my mindset's completely changed on that, on liability aspect.
And just another adjustment you do is that you make sure you have an annual meeting with your attorney to make sure that you're covered.
Yes.
Lots of insurance.
Yes, lots of insurance.
Why do you see, because of the conditions where you are, and now you told me where the corn goes. You got poultry to the east, dairy to the west, some feed yards. Obviously, the rail, I assume, even you're not. If we're expecting, like Mexico's our number 1 or number 2 buyer of corn, I can almost see Texas corn going across the border. Is that where some of it goes?
Yeah, there was a number thrown around the other day that it's like 85% of our corn goes there. Don't quote me on that, but that was being talked about the other day.
So does Texas stay a corn state? 5 years from now, when you and I are talking, do you say, yeah, well, corn came and then corn went, or does corn come and does corn stay?
I believe it'll stay. I mean, we're so diverse across the state. You go to the Panhandle, they can raise 300 bushel corn under a pivot. That corn is there to stay, as long as they have water.
As long as they have the water, which is
that's an issue.
It's tenuous. I mean,
yeah, that's an issue. And then, so I'm in the Blacklands, the Central Texas Blacklands, and I think corn's here to stay.
I don't know if you're just doing this to piss me off as a Midwest guy, because we want you to say, no, you know what? It needs to go back to Indiana. You guys need to grow the corn up there.
Well, yeah. So we used to be cotton. I mean, back in the, early 1900s, I don't know the dates, but we were number 1 or number 2 cotton producing county in the state back then. I mean, they were planting cotton by hand out on this White Rock hills out here east of me. I mean, cotton was king. I think the boll weevil peeled it all back and changed the whole economy in the South. So,
well, and then we've also just got to demand it. I mean, I don't know as much about it, certainly, as you and Matt and the guys that grow cotton. Our friend Johnny had said in Western Tennessee that when I first met him, that was one of his big things. He took the family operation away from cotton. They grew cotton religiously. I mean, that was their thing. We got a demand problem, right?
That's right. And it's very expensive, very intensive crop to grow. And I mean, everything you do with cotton costs a lot of money.
It's like $1 million machine for a new cotton harvester, and it can only do one thing. Harvest cotton.
Yeah, but you say that, and it's super expensive, especially with cotton price. But you may take, I don't know how many people, several people out of the equation labor-wise compared to the way we used to have to do it with basket machines and module builders and bowl buggies. And then at the end of the day, you got to get out and tarp all these modules. And like now, it's 1 or 2 guys doing all that work with one machine.
Right. How many acres do you need to justify a cotton harvester? Matt told me once.
Boy, that's a loaded question right now with the way cotton is. But it's got to be bumping 3,000 acres in our climate here. I mean,
yeah, because it's based on ton or pounds or whatever. I mean, if you're getting more tons per acre, then you can justify it. So, in your part of the world, do you own a machine?
Yes, I do.
And you think you need about 3,000 acres to justify owning a cotton harvester?
Yes, but the problem with that is you can't harvest 3,000 with one here. Our window's too short. Well, if we get a big fall rain, I mean, it'd take too long. It's impossible.
Then the cotton deteriorates, or you're losing.
Right.
So how many acres you're going to have this year in cotton?
A little over 3,000. So I'll have to hire some help or rent another machine.
I see. By the way, speaking of renting, I always heard I wanted to be a custom harvester. When I was 17, I read about it, and I said, I want to do that. When I'm 18, I'm going to go, and I'm going to start down in Texas, and I'm going to drive a combine all the way up to Canada. And I never did it. Of course, I think you also work like 140-hour weeks and don't sleep or anything like that. I think you get so tired of sitting in that combine, you probably like lose your mind. But you don't use custom harvesters?
No, used to. So my dad went through a spell where he hired it all done, but then we got into these situations, especially with wheat back then, where you'd get a big rain event, and the next guy to the north of us would be, screaming at our guy to get there, get there, get there. Well, the guy's just parked here, and he could be running there, so he loads up and goes. It's hard to blame the guy. He's got
to keep the machines going to make the money. Yeah.
So then we're left here. Now we're scrambling to find somebody to harvest, and so when I think my second year in, I'm like, we got to buy a combine. I'm going to buy a combine. So I did. Mm-hmm. And so we've been doing it ever since.
How many combines you have running now?
We run 3 now.
And that's enough to get it done and not miss your windows.
Yep. It's tough. I mean, last year we didn't get our wheat cut. We literally didn't get it cut. We ended up cutting all of it about 2 months late. I'll put it that way. And quality was gone.
Yeah, right. Because of moisture.
Yep.
You ever think about picking up your farm and moving? I mean, we did an episode of The Greenery. By the way, if you're watching this, if you're listening to this, it means you're a fan of Extreme Ag. We appreciate that. You need to check out our new show. We just started releasing episodes at the beginning of the year. It's shot at my farm, at my on-farm hangout, 1800s era grain rebuilding. The guys have been there. We're eventually going to get Mr. Kimbrell there, and we talk about the personal, the professional, and everything in between about agriculture. And I asked the guys, everybody envies the old grass is greener thing. Would you want to farm somewhere else?
I don't know. It's been talked about a lot. It seems like the Midwest is pretty sweet, but then I know they fight the big dollar rents, and those sound really scary from a guy in the South. So, that's a tough question. Matt Miles has all the water he wants. There's a lot of times where, man, I wish we could flip a switch and turn the water on. So, I don't know. I'd have to go. I don't know. That'd be tough.
Well, Chad pointed out, he's like, at first it sounds neat, but then you got to relearn everything because you've learned how to adjust and adapt to where you are, and all of a sudden I got to change it up. Yeah. Well, obviously, Central Illinois always comes to the top of the heap, but then you say, are you ready to shell out $600 acre rent? What? I was like, welcome to Central Illinois prairie soils.
Yeah, I know that would be tough. I don't know how we'd manage that, and you put us there, we'll be trying to plant corn in February. We'd probably fail miserably the first year.
Well, that's what I was going to say, yeah. all the coffee shop crowd's going to say, this idiot came up from Texas and didn't realize that he was latitudinally about 1,000 miles too far north to be planting corn in February. Or maybe you go up there and revolutionize things. I don't know, but my guess is it would not work. Speaking of not work, tell me a failure you've had that you've learned from. I mean, most farmers, if you're an Extreme Ag, we talk about this. We're making mistakes, so you don't have to. You got to have the backbone to admit, yep, I screwed up, but man, I learned.
Man, I've had a lot of those lessons. I learned a long time ago, it's a lot easier just to accept that you did it the wrong way than try to blame it on something else or somebody else, whatever. But we've tried all the different tillages, all the conservation practices you can think of. Strip till, no till. I got real gung-ho. I thought strip till was the way. We tried it, failed miserably. I wanted it to work so bad. I think you have to still do full width tillage here to make it work, but we got away from it. Didn't work for us. It's too wet in the spring. No till is extremely too wet in the spring. I missed a crop trying to do no till on a little bit, trying to do some no till stuff one time. It just flat out doesn't work for us.
Yeah, that's interesting. I mean, I'm a conservation guy, and I think, we degrade soil texture and soil structure by over the tillage, and you're just saying you wanted to be there, and it's not happening.
We can. I mean, if we shade our ground in the early spring, it'll be May or June before it'll dry out typically,
and then you're up against the temperature clock.
Then it's way too late to plant. It's really too late to even plant cotton at that point. So
yeah, because of the temperatures.
Yep.
Speaking of conservation, you got an award. Your wife posted on social media. It's nice to have a spouse that's proud of you.
Yeah. No, she's a great support. She pushes our whole family. So
I'm a fan already because you told me that she was following me before you and I ever met. So you know what? Yeah. If she's keeping up with my business of agriculture, all my stuff, I'm a fan. But what's the award?
It was just being recognized about conservation practices and how we handle the water.
When I think of conservation, I don't think of all the tillage that you're doing. So what are you doing that's a conservation?
I mean, it goes back to old school. I'm almost embarrassed to say, but it's old school, like terraces and waterways, slow this water down, flood prevention, flood control, erosion control. And honestly, that the water grows is just a push to expose people to ag that aren't normally exposed, like politicians and the general public. Like, here's what we do, here's who we are. We're just normal people like you, but we farm.
Yeah.
So maybe not completely normal.
Well, you said normal people like you, and most people in the XtremeAg guys don't think I'm normal. I looked at the aerial around where you are. I don't know exactly where you are, and I did notice there's a lot more contour of that ground. I saw terraces and waterways and that kind of thing. Do you use the CRP programs and the buffer strips and that kind of stuff?
Yes, we've done all that in the past. We have, and do a lot of it. I mean, we're heavily involved with that stuff, so yes.
You're a conservation guy, and also then the award reflected water, and they're talking about water purity and water protecting waterways from runoff and that kind of thing.
That's right.
You've been an XtremeAg member. You met Matt. Now you know me. You're gonna meet the other guys. Anything you've gleaned from XtremeAg so far?
The first thing going in that I love, the favorite part, and I'd like people to know this. I didn't know exactly what it was, but I figured it out real quick. It's unbiased data, unbiased info, and it's just real farmers talking real. This thing isn't scripted, isn't staged, and I love it. I think we need more of this in ag, honestly.
Well, I'll take that. I'll even take a little credit for some of that, because I've been doing this for almost 4 years now. All right, get me out the door here. What else did we not cover that I needed to ask you that you think, you know what, the one thing I can tell you, I said on your X profile, a farm where you could lose a crop to drought in the wettest year on record. Is there anything about that we didn't cover?
No, just it's extreme. You know, you come down here on a particular year and everything may work perfect. That doesn't happen that often, but from driving by, things look really good, but the switch could flip very quickly here.
Don't you think, Todd, that really, no matter where you are, and we can make cracks about Central Illinois and $600 cash rents and whatever you want to talk about, and 20-foot of prairie soils and that kind of thing. I think, and I don't farm. Remember, I'm a farm guy, farm kid, farm owner. I think adjusting and being able to always make the adjustment, I think, is really the key to being successful in this business, probably any business.
Yeah, so being able to adapt on the fly, that's what it's all about. And I know some of the older generation struggles with it. I've seen it personally here. It's tough, and maybe I'm even getting that way. I hope not, but you have to be able to adapt on the fly, or you're not going to make it in this, and especially in this farm economy we're in right now. You got to be able to adapt. And efficiency. I watch all these videos before I was even involved, but efficiency is what it's all about in technology. We're testing everything we can get our hands on right now.
Agree. So anyway, his name's Todd Kimbrell. He's got a heck of a following on Twitter if you want to go and check him out there. What's your handle?
Todd Kimbrell Jr., I believe, on Twitter.
Yeah, well, you don't even know?
Yeah, something like that.
Go check him out. He's in Texas. He's an XtremeAg guy. He's got a good following. He puts stuff up there. You'll be seeing more of him on XtremeAg. Anyway, I'm glad you got on here talking about farming in extreme conditions where you can lose a crop to drought, even the wettest year on record. And I want to keep up with that. Also, we will be covering his experiment or his business venture into sesame. He's going to do 1,500 acres of sesame, and I'm going to try and pair that up with another person that's doing a specialty crop, so we can think about different considerations that a farmer that's going to say, hey, maybe it's time for me to consider a specialty crop contract because I need some diversification. So I think that's where we're going to take this. Anyway, his name's Todd Kimbrell. Thanks for being here, my friend. Until next time, I'm Damian Mason, and this is XtremeAg's Cutting the Curve.
That's a wrap for this episode of XtremeAg's Cutting the Curve podcast. Make sure to check out XtremeAg.com for more great content. Cutting the Curve is powered by Nachurs BioK. Check out Nachurs.com to learn more about how BioK can improve your farm's ROI.